Hey, welcome back to our PICO-8 tutorial series. Last time we got a little eyeball moving around the screen, and I said this time we're going to flesh out the level a little bit and give him a map to move around on. So to do that, first of all, this is a new session for me, so I don't have any code loaded up. I have to go from the save. So I've loaded my PICO-8. Remember, I put this in tutorial. And there it is, tutorial 01. So I can type load tutorial 01. By the way, I'm hitting tab here to complete what I'm typing. So now that it's loaded, I'm going to actually save it as tut-02. I may upload and post these somewhere just in case you need them. They're not that complicated yet. But just for reference, I'm going to keep these separate game files. You can do the same as well. You can just come to the keyboard and type save and a new file. If you've gotten to a point where you're like, oh, everything's working, I would really hate to break it adding this next new feature. So let me save this into a different file and start working on a different file. That way, I can always go back if I need to, right? Just like a video game, roll your saves. Yes, if you're a practice developer, you may thinking like, oh, well, you can use source control and everything like that. But I'm going to assume you don't even know what I mean when I say source control. So just roll your saves at this point, make video games, learn coding, and then at some point they're like, hey, what is this source control thing? How can this make my life easier? Rather than trying to learn a whole bunch of tools at once. Focus on making your first game first, then come back and learn more different ways to do it in tutorials. Okay, now here's our code that we had typed in where we set up our player, and then we did all this code in here to move them around, and then we cleared them out. So the first thing I kind of want to do, let me just run it, just in case you're jumping into this video to see what it does. There you go. Allows an eyeball to move around the screen. First thing I want to do here is back to my mantra. Video game development is not hard, it is complicated. I want to try to keep things as simple as possible. And staring at all these lines of code doesn't feel simple, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to pop open a new tab. So there was 0, I click the little plus here, now I have a 1. And I'm going to type a function. I'm going to call it move player. Open close parentheses, end. Just like that. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to tab 0. I'm going to select everything I have here. And I'm going to cut it, Control X on Windows PC. I come over here and I'm going to hit Control V and I'm going to paste it. Took all that code and I put this in this function move player. And now I save it and I broke everything. Nothing runs. Okay, well, that's because I now need to call it here. And now everything's back. So we've been using PICO-8 functions, correct? We made some of these special ones that PICO-8 defined here in the PICO-8 cheat sheet. They defined here the draw, the init, and the update. We've been using some of the API ones, the CLS, the SPR. But now we've gone and made our own complete custom function here. It looks just like the other ones we made for PICO-8, called move player. And this is really a shorthand reference. What this says is, this line means to go to this tab, to find this function, to do all these instructions, and when you're done, get back here. What it does for us is it cleans everything up in the code, right? And we can even do this to the rest of it. In fact, I do this quite often with my code. So I'll have a function init player. And I will take this out. Make sure I just get the stuff inside. Over here. Now run it. Make sure I didn't break anything. And then now this looks really weird. Now we're doing a sprite S, X, and Y, and we don't even know where that came from, right? So it makes sense to go ahead and add a function draw player. And we'll just put that in there. We'll replace this with saved it, run it. Okay. So at this point, we've sort of moved all the player off to this tab 1 code. And we don't have to worry about it in our game code over here right now. It's easier to read. So we initialize the player, then we move the player, and then down here we draw the player, and we don't have to worry about what that entails anymore at this point. So let's go ahead and create a map. To do that, I'm going to jump over here to tile 9, and I'll give a quick basics of pixel art. Now, I am not an artist. There's far better tutorials out there on the internet of how to draw pixel art. But I'll give you a crash course over. So, this is our bricks. I'm going to come here and I'm going to draw in a couple lines. You know, let me put it up there. Is that good? I don't know. How about there and there? Just kind of balancing them out right now. Alright, so these are about the same height. Alright, good. And I'm going to draw a line here on that one and the line here on that one, just so that they look like they're stacked. You can see, kind of looks like bricks. I'll come over to my map editor and I can sort of draw these bricks out just to see what the pattern looks like repeated. Okay, that's basic. Anybody can do that. So let's make this more pixel arty. Okay. First thing is I want a little bit more contrast. So I'm going to make this black. Now, let's do. If I come over here, notice I changed the sprite. If I come over to my map, notice it's black here now as well. Okay, because I changed the tile. I don't have to repaint it over here. Right? Now that I have some bricks on the screen, I want to draw those. Well, I'm going to click on my PICO-8 API cheat sheet. Map and map draw. And map draw is the same as map. So you don't even need this function. Okay? Really going to need mget and mset later. But for now, we just need map. Takes a cell X, cell Y, SXX. Oh wow, there's so many things, right? Okay, let's go to our PICO-8 wiki. Let's look up the map. There's the map. And now we can see cell X, cell Y, SX, cell Y. We can see what all of these mean. And these draw a map. Cell X and cell Y is where do you start drawing the map from, right? So, if you look in, I'm going to freeze my screen here for a second. If you look in this bottom section here, it tells you the X is 2 and the Y is 3. So if I imagine a grid on here, right? This grid, actually I think I have one more, not to scale, shows you that I'm like 2 tiles over. This first tile here is 0, 0. Okay. And then this is the 1, this is the 1, this is the 2, the 3, the 2, this is the 3, etc. etc. Shows you which tile to start at. It's not pixels. It's tiles. So in map, we're going to work with tile. The S and the X value that it has here, however, are in pixels. Y, X coordinate and Y coordinate of the screen. So These are in pixels. So we're going to take tiles and we're going to say where we draw them. Cell width and cell height is the number of map cells. Cells are back to tiles. Cells are tiles, okay? You can use those interchangeably. So, if we want to draw 3 tiles wide by 3 tiles high, just a 3 by 3 grid, and that'd be 3 and 3. And we're not going to worry about layer at the moment. It is optional. Actually, let you know a little secret. Not really highlighted here, but a lot of these arguments to map are optional. Don't know why it hasn't been updated. In fact, they're all optional. So if we come here and we say map with no arguments, it draws the map at the top right, like you would expect. Well, what that was it drew map 0, 0, 0, 0, and 16, 16. The same thing. Okay. If you want to draw a full screen worth, that is 16 tiles by 16 tiles, you don't need these two. If you want to draw the map anchored to the top right, you don't need those two. Now, if you're starting the map at any place other than 0, 0, you will need those two, but we won't at the moment. Okay. But we have run into an issue. My bricks have blue gaps. I don't want blue gaps in my brick. Okay? I cleared the screen to blue, and then my map drew blue. All of my bricks are black. Why'd that happen? Well, over here in graphics, we have this P-Alt that takes a color and then this out to T. Not going to really worry about out to T. What it is palette transparency is what that means. Pal T is palette transparency. This color, we only need to pass in this first one, is going to be the color that is transparent. So we have to pick one of these and make it transparent. So we're not using this pink down here right now. 14. We're also not using this lime green anywhere. Maybe, how about we go with this beige? How about we go with color 15? So I'm going to say color 15 now is the transparent color. Okay? If I come over to my code and I say pal T is 15, and we draw the map. Now nothing happened. Ha ha ha. Why didn't that? Did I mess that up? Color 15. Set transparency color. Our color to T. That should have worked. This should be transparent. I did promise you in an earlier video you would see live debugging. So, alright, we're going to look up in our search here real quick. I'm going to look up Alt. Okay, so I misunderstood this. So, we do want 15. What I forgot is true. So this means color 15 is now transparent, which is not the black. But black is still transparent because that's the default. So black is 0. Now we have what I want. Except our sprite guy now has weird corner edges. Oh no. So what we want to do is put it back before we draw the player. So here we set black transparency false. So now we can draw black. And the beige in the corner is now transparent, and then we draw the map. Then we set it back, and then we draw the player. Now we have exactly what we want. Okay. There's a little bit of debugging, but now we have it set up the way we wanted. Now that we got our bricks, we can make our bricks more interesting. We're going to go back to basics of pixel art, right? We make our bricks more interesting by highlighting them. So let's pick this pink color. Let's put it along the top edges. So you have to kind of imagine the brick is, it's tiling over here. But you can see by highlighting that top edge, it's made it pop out a little bit. You can even go so far as to shadow it if you want. I'll pick this purple here and put that on the bottom. Now this is getting excessive for the size of our bricks. Maybe that's what we want. That's a lot of pop to the brick. Maybe that's too much. So what we can do is we can just sort of randomly highlight like that and give some texture to the brick if you want. Or, we can even put this back the way it was. And let's use this blue here. And maybe we'll highlight in the gaps. See how that looks. Give it a little bit interesting texture in the gaps instead. Now, like I said, I'm not a pixel artist, but this thinking about lighting is the secret to better pixel art. Okay? Just thinking about how the sun's going to shine down from the top, right? So the pieces that stick out, it's coming down, the sun's coming down from this top left. The sun's going to accent the top left pieces that stick out, and there's going to be more shadows on the bottom left pieces of the brick, right? Now, PICO-8 doesn't give us a whole lot to work with in terms of pixels, so you're going to have to be more judicious than you would if you had a higher res to work with, but it is somewhere to start learning the basics. And do not think because you're limited to these colors in this screen, you can't make some amazing art. Just go back and look at what things people have done. It gets amazing pretty quickly. So I'm just going to go with the small rough edge pink highlight there. I'll highlight these out. Now, I want to fill the screen with this brick border, which I know is 16 by 16. So I can come in here and I can count over or use this counter down here at the bottom, right? So that's 0, 0. So I want to go to 15, 15. So there's 15, and I'll put a little corner piece on it, and I'll run it. And I'll make sure my corner piece lines up in the corner. There's another way you can do this. If you use space, sort of grab and move the map, when you hit space, it'll put this grid up. And this grid, let me see if I can get my draw tool up here at the same time. There we go. This grid, each one of these blocks is 2 by 2, right? There's 4 tiles in each one of the boxes of the grid. And then these little marks appear at the corner of the screen. So this is a quarter of the screen, and then the one that's off screen here right now. Let me get out of my tool. Make up a full screen. So if I go down, that's 1, 2. I know down here, right? This tile right there is the bottom corner. Just like that. That can make it easier working with the map and just knowing you can zoom out to work with it at a far out level. It's easier to make mistakes this far out, but you know, if you're doing a whole screen, it can work. I'm also using quick keys such as middle mouse button to drag the screen around, using right mouse button to select tiles. Again, remember I said in another video, this first one is the erase. So that will always erase tiles. That draws tiles. Now, if you have a tile that's completely black, you'll get this little dot in the top corner. It might be hard to see. I'll make a bunch of them right there. That means those are actually black tiles. They're not empty tiles. If I run that, you'll actually see like, oh wow, I accidentally got some empty sprites instead of no sprites. I want to erase that. I want to see the background, right? There we go. To make a more interesting sprite for the background, we'll make some rocks here. So I'm just gonna make a blob. That's a rock. Go. I'll make another one here, maybe. There. There. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to I think that rock's a little big, to be honest. I'm gonna come over to my map and I'm gonna make, well, that one is a little big. Doesn't he stick out? He sticks out quite a bit. But rather than pare him down, I'm gonna grab a highlight tool, put some gravelly chips in him, grab this darker one, just highlighting it. I'm doing it kind of randomly here because it's gravel. I'm not going to think a whole lot about how the sun affects on that. And then I'm going to copy this, 2, 3, and 4, and then I'm going to hit the R, RR, and RRR to rotate this into a couple different directions. And then I'm going to come back here and I'm going to randomly grab that and splotch it. I'm going to randomly click around there and I'm going to randomly click around here. And I'm just going to do this and mix this up a bit. I mean, it's not terrible. It's not the best. I'm not a pixel artist. I said that several. Then what I'm going to do is, so that I got this sort of here, I'm going to create this tool. I'm going to copy that and I'm going to hit this Control C. Now it says copied 4x5, right? I'll hit the stamp tool. Now you can see I got this 4x5, right? Boom, boom. And I can just sort of stamp this in everywhere. You don't want to click and drag because that's going to replace. Like as you do it, it's kind of just redrawing it. But I'm just going to stamp around a bunch. Run that. Now I sort of have, it's an eyesore. I'm not going to lie. It's not the best. But you know, I sort of have a textured background and brick edges for my game. You know, later we can put in a door here. But that is sort of the basics of getting a map up. Now, let's say I want to pick this whole thing here and go back to my select tool. I'm going to reselect everything. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to go to my stamp tool. Put another room right there. A whole nother room. Zoom in, get rid of my selection tool for a second. Yep. There we go. Back to my draw tool, and let's just open up pathway. Okay, there's a pathway between 2 screens now. make it so that when I run this, okay, we need to change rooms, don't we? We're not doing that, right? We can move through anything, by the way, because we don't have collision detection on. That's a whole other code topic we're not going to get into in this video. But we are going to change the map. So we come back over here, and we're going to come up to the init function, and we're going to say mx for mapx equals 0, and my for mapy equals 0. And then we're going to draw a map at mx, my. Now, we know from our other video that the player is going to move his x and y in this function, and that they're called x and y. The only one we care about, because we only have a room that goes right now to the right, is the player. So what we're going to say is, if the player, which is x, because we're only concerned about x, if x is greater than 127, okay? So if you remember back to our screen is, this is 0, 0, and it's 128 by 128, right? So that means 0 counts. We start counting from 0. It's 128 pixels. That means the last one is numbered 127. So if it's greater than that, if it's actually 128, that means we're into this next map that's side by side. Okay. Then mx equals 16. Else mx equals 0. This is very basic for us. Okay, so if x is greater than 127, then it equals 16. If it's less, it equals 0. We'll run this to see that it works, and we'll go back and explain it. So it is changing the map. We're losing our player, however. So, the problems that we have with losing the player is they still go off the screen, right? Like, we let the player move off the screen. Our map changed, but the player moved off the screen. But that is a problem. What we're going to do is, if their x is greater than 127, we're going to actually move the player to 0. Okay? So what are we doing? We've got a problem, don't we? It's going to get complicated fast, right? Let me run this here and get my tool up and try to explain what's going on. Okay. So right here, when the player goes here, the player's x is 128. So we change the whole map, right? We move the map. You see the other opening here. And the player, you think, should be here. But really, the screen is 0, 0, 127. So the player's at 128. The player's still over here. Okay. Well, we try to fix that, right? We try to say, well, set the player to 0. But once we set the player to 0, and you saw this flickering, the map changed back. So this can get into a lot of code to handle it. Okay? This can get into a lot of details on how to handle it. And I think what we're going to do is, because we're at about 30 minutes for this video, and I don't want to have these go too long. We're going to get into this in the next video, and what we're going to do is called moving the map with the camera. We're going to use a function here called camera, which sets a camera position. That's going to help solve a lot of these problems for us. So see you in the next